This convocation, a meeting of the general faculty at the University of Texas at El Paso, will now come to order. My name is Sándor Dorgó. I am currently serving as the Faculty Senate President. In this function, I will facilitate today's convocation meeting. The Faculty Senate at UTEP is the primary vehicle for faculty participation in shared university governance and provides a university-wide forum for faculty input and debate. The Faculty Senate is the voice of the faculty, working to enhance the vision and direction of UTEP and work to assure quality in research, creative writing, teaching, student life, and service, while exercising responsibility for maintaining and improving rigorous standards throughout the curriculum. The Faculty Senate is comprised of 68 senators representing all academic programs and 9 Executive Council members representing all colleges and schools. The Faculty Senate also oversees the operation of 15 university-wide committees focusing on academic affairs, faculty affairs, student affairs, and university affairs, with faculty representatives from each college and school. The work of the Faculty Senate is overseen by the Faculty Senate President. On behalf of the university-wide faculty, we are committed to working closely with the UT System Board of Regents, President Heather Wilson, and the university administration to continually improve faculty governance. Now, let me take a moment to thank our student ambassadors, student volunteers, and representatives of the university staff for serving as ushers today. I offer my special thanks to Nina Rios and Stephanie Michel for providing our interpretation this afternoon, and the members of the UTEP Marching Miners Drumline for providing our opening funfair as we arrived at the auditorium. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Andrew Smith, Director of the Drumline, and Dr. Andrew Hunter, Associate Director of Bands and Director of Athletic Bands. Thank you for all that you do. I am now honored to recognize a number of individuals here today who play key leadership roles in ensuring UTEP's success. I'll start with UTEP's vice presidents, deans, and outstanding colleagues whose leadership has been and will continue to be critical to achieving our students and UTEP's full potential. I will ask them to stand, and I will ask you to hold your applause until I have introduced everybody. UTEP President, Dr. Heather Wilson. Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. John Wiebe. Vice President for Research, Dr. Roberto Osegueda. Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Gary Edens. Vice President for Information Resources and Planning, Dr. Steve Ryder. Vice President for Business Affairs, Mark McGurk. Vice President for Asset Management and Development, Mr. Ben Gonzalez. Athletic Director, Mr. James Center. Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Stephen Kreitz. Dean of the College of Business Administration, Dr. James Payne. Associate Dean of Graduate Studies for the College of Education, Dr. Beverly Argus Calvo. Dean of the College of Engineering, Dr. Teresa Maldonado. Dean of the Extended University, Dr. Beth Bronk Chavez. Dean of the College of Liberal Arts, Dr. Dennis O'Hearn. Dean of the College of Health Sciences, Dr. Shafiq Daramsi. Interim Dean of the School of Nursing, Dr. Leslie Robbins. Dean of the School of Pharmacy, Dr. Jose Rivera. Dean of the College of Science, Dr. Robert Kirken. I'm also very pleased to acknowledge other members of the UTEP campus leadership team, including Chair of the Graduate Council, Dr. Amy Wegler, Vice Chair of the Staff Council, Mr. Corey Brown, President of the UTEP Alumni Association, Ms. Laura Biggs, and President of the Student Government Association, Ms. Jessica Martinez. Thanks to all of you for all that you do for UTEP. Now, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce UTEP's President, Dr. Heather Wilson. Dr. Wilson joins UTEP following her appointment as the 24th Secretary of the United States Air Force. Having left the university presidency in South Dakota to serve in the Pentagon, Dr. Wilson is very happy to be back on a college campus in the Southwest, and especially this college campus in the Southwest. She and her husband, Jay Hone, are from Albuquerque, where Dr. Wilson represented New Mexico in the US Congress for 10 years. She is a 1982 graduate of the US Air Force Academy in Colorado, and she was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University in England, where she earned her master's and doctoral degrees in international relations. Like many students at UTEP, Dr. Wilson was also first in her family to attend college. She knows very well the doors of opportunity that open with a college degree, and she is deeply committed to enhancing not only UTEP's role in providing access to excellent higher education, but also the university's positive impact on the social and economic prosperity of the community we serve. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming UTEP's 11th president, Dr. Heather Wilson.
Shandor, thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank all of you for being here this afternoon. It was in the depths of the Depression in 1931 when C.L. Sonicson arrived on the train from Boston a few days after completing his doctoral exams. He was to teach English at a mining school that was adding a liberal arts degree in a cluster of buildings that looked like a monastery plucked from the Himalayas and dropped at the foot of the Franklin Mountains in the Chihuahuan Desert, almost 1.5 miles north of the city of El Paso. He didn't initially expect to stay long, but like Horace Greeley, he had gone west and grew up with the country. Eventually, this long-serving English department head wrote the introduction to a book on the pictorial history of this university. He wrote of his first year arriving on campus, and yet there was much to be said for this struggling country college. For one thing, it was desperately needed. El Paso was not yet a city, but it was growing fast. The schools needed teachers. The businessmen needed young men and women with special training. It was 600 miles to Austin, too far for many people to go for an education. No school was ever prayed for and worked for with greater dedication. The mining school, it should be said, filled a special need. Desperately needed, worked for, and prayed for, with great dedication. It was a school that filled a special need. Like most American public universities established in the 19th and 20th century, this one began with a strong foundation in teaching a practical subject, mining. The trend toward a new kind of higher education began with the Morrill Land Grant Acts and continued with the post-World War II GI Bill. Teaching. Not just for the children of the wealthy and privileged to prepare them for the clergy or law or medicine. These universities were to be accessible to all, but especially to the sons of toil, as Senator Justin Smith Morrill of Vermont memorably said. Higher education is and for over a century has been the single greatest gateway to economic and social mobility in America. The businessmen needed young men and women with special training. The schools needed teachers. More than 88 years after Dr. Sonicson stepped off the train, less than 2 miles from here, this commitment to excellent teaching, to meeting the educational needs of our community, continues in earnest. And our faculty continue to be recognized for their excellence in teaching. More than 70 of our faculty members have been honored by the University of Texas Board of Regents since 2009, when the first Regents Outstanding Teaching Award was given. This year, 2 more faculty members have received the Board of Regents Outstanding Teaching Award, and I'd like one of them to come forward to be recognized for her achievement. Dr. Martine Caballero, Associate Professor of Computer Science. Denise Lujan, the Director of Developmental Math, is not here today. She's not on campus, but we will give her her recognition at a later time. She also was recognized with the Regents Outstanding Teacher Award this year. Teaching excellence results in student success, and we see examples of that all across campus. Take, for example, the corporate academies at the College of Business. Curricula developed in partnership with business enables students to work and learn, gaining a deeper understanding of industry best practices and giving students an advantage in the job market after graduation. Engaged learning is also paying off in the College of Science. Last year, nearly 45% of science-focused students maintained a GPA of 3.5 or higher. Their average time to degree completion is less than 4.5 years, and almost 80% of science students who apply to graduate programs from UTEP are accepted. And we see student success among our athletes. Last year, 160 UTEP student athletes, a school record, were named to the Conference USA Honor Roll with a cumulative grade point averages of 3.0 or better. Our athletes and coaches want to compete for and win conference championships as athletes and to be their best selves in the classroom as well. While UTEP has experienced 21 straight years of growth in enrollment, the world of post-secondary education is changing, and we are meeting new needs in new ways. We're expanding opportunities for professional and distance-enabled education. This fall, our English Language Institute collaborated with the Center for Instructional Design to develop and offer fully online courses in English grammar, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And this year, we welcomed our 3rd cohort of pharmacy students. These 54 future pharmacists will join the more than 90 pharmacy students we enrolled in our first 2 cohorts in the only pharmacy school in the country that requires 3 years of Spanish as well as study in the community. While UTEP serves as a national model for excellence in higher education, we must also acknowledge the challenges that face us. Nationwide, following the 2008 recession, states reduced taxpayer funding for higher education. Over several decades, the cost of public higher education has shifted away from taxpayers and toward financially stretched families. Some have called into question the relevance of higher education in recent years, particularly with the burden of debt that can accompany it. let us be clear here at UTEP. The world around us is changing. We are in an era of increasingly global, knowledge-based economies. This change will only accelerate in the coming decades. Coming out of the recession, 7 out of every 10 new jobs created in that period required some post-secondary education or training. 7 out of 10. The regions of the world that educate people will thrive in the 21st century, and those that don't will be left behind. What was good enough for our parents and our grandparents is not good enough for our children and our grandchildren. UTEP must take its place as a national leader, as a 21st century university. Sometimes people talk about higher education as a service or a product that only benefits those who receive it. To be sure, higher education is the ticket to a dream for individuals and for their families. It continues to be the greatest gateway to social and economic mobility in America. But that's not all it is. We must continue to advocate for taxpayer support of public higher education because the education of others benefits us all. When our children are sick, we all benefit when there is an educated nurse at urgent care. When the rains come, we all benefit because an educated civil engineer designed the arroyo that takes water safely through this campus to the Rio Grande below. When we touch any of the 1,000 things today, from our cell phone in our pocket to the report on investments in our retirement account, we all benefit from the education of the person who brought that product or service to us. Our lives are longer, healthier, more prosperous, and safer, and more filled with beauty and joy when we live in an educated community where everyone has developed their gifts to the fullest. We must make the case for cost-effective, publicly supported higher education in Texas and across this country. And yes, it must be cost-effective. We are not here to coddle the sons and daughters of privilege. UTEP provides excellent education at one of the most reasonable prices for a top-tier university in America. We will continue to do everything we can to control costs and keep college affordable for families. And in that regard, I wanted to personally thank the 45 faculty members who stepped forward to work with IT and library staff to help UTEP make the shift to low-cost or no-cost textbooks, particularly for core courses for freshmen and sophomores. We will focus our early efforts on the large freshman and sophomore courses like physics, where the textbook costs over $300. $300 is a week's work for a student making a bit more than minimum wage. We will keep college affordable for the sons and daughters of toil. But there's another trend in higher education that UTEP must continue to counter. Too many universities have lost their way and bought into national ratings that claim exclusivity as a virtue. Do we think that a restaurant is the best in the country because they close the door on 90% of the people who are hungry? UTEP chooses to be part of a core group of exceptional universities that will not be judged by whom we exclude, but by whom we include and their success. Exclusivity does not define excellence. Success defines excellence. UTEP will continue to advocate for public support of higher education. UTEP will continue to keep the cost of a college education affordable. UTEP will be judged by the students whom we include and their success. UTEP will be a leader among 21st century universities. There was much to be said about this struggling country college. Of the many struggles faced by the College of Mines in 1931, the most pressing for the faculty was their purpose. President Dawsey Wiggins, who succeeded UTEP's first president, John Berry, told his faculty that they were there to teach, period. President Wiggins even went so far as to tell his faculty that they were hired much the same way Wiggins bought his mules. And he intended to get as much mule as he could for his money. Dawsey's mules, the faculty called themselves, but they knew they had more to offer. They knew, Dr. Sonicson said, that they were there to acquire, record, and disseminate knowledge. And so, Sonicson explained, the new PhD faculty began doing research on the region. One among them chronicled botany up to the Mescalero Reservation in New Mexico, and another produced a definitive study of the geology of the Franklin Mountains. They dug up fossils and set students to work writing theses on Mexican novelists. They took students to Mexico every summer to study art and studied Texas fiction and folklore. They did the work that came to hand. This comprehensive public research university, with a strong sense of place and engagement in the region, grew from the seed they planted. Imagine what Dr. Sonicson and his faculty peers would think of us now. 91 million in research expenditures and a portfolio of 353 research awards that total more than $270 million in committed external funding. Our Border Biomedical Research Center engages more than 80 healthcare and science faculty and is driving discoveries that will address health disparities in cancer, diabetes, and other diseases. It was recently awarded another $19.2 million from the National Institutes of Health. We have developed expertise here in space vehicle materials derived from studying the debris of the shuttle Columbia that fell from the sky over Texas. And we are one of the best in the world at the neuroscience of bilingualism. We don't just transmit knowledge at UTEP, we create it. Engaged scholarship, the scholarship of place, defined this campus from the beginning and continues to drive us today. Dr. Sonicson's story began in 1931, but our history of meeting the educational needs of our community date back to our earliest days in 1914. UTEP has been supported by and supportive of the region in which we live. Every day, in the brief month since I arrived, I have met accountants and marketing managers, lab technicians and high school coaches, musicians and builders, physical therapists and engineers, law enforcement officers, and even a few lawyers who are UTEP alum. More than 8,500 teachers in the El Paso area are UTEP graduates. 8,500 teachers. But impact is more than what our graduates do. 33,000 people enjoyed a college football game in a stadium carved into a mountain 2 weeks ago. And others listened to a stunningly beautiful cello concert in this hall. We share our expertise with the city to reduce and reuse precious groundwater, and we support continuing education and quality improvement for small businesses throughout the state of Texas. Our students run free speech therapy clinics for those without insurance. And our faculty and students not only analyze economic trends in the region, they build businesses to grow the economy and create jobs. UTEP positively impacts the health, culture, education, and economy of the community we serve. Over the coming months, we will review and seek to revitalize our connections to community, our understanding of the needs of the region, so that we continue to provide what is desperately needed in our time. History is a woven figure. In the north of Chihuahua, Spanish explorers found 2 mountain ranges that rose from the high desert. The gap between them was El Paso del Norte, the gateway for passage, the gateway for opportunity. For 400 years, this place has been the route of trade and the meeting point of cultures and governments. Who we are, what we do as a university, is connected by web and weft to those who traveled these routes and settled this place. We are connected to those early faculty who started on that first day of class in 1914, and to those first doctoral faculty in the 1930s who chose to advance knowledge by studying and engaging with this place. In the late 1920s, a state legislator from El Paso named Adrian Poole created what Dr. Sonicson described as great clouds of dust in the Texas legislature for supporting the College of Mines. Representative Poole believed that this struggling country college could become a great international university. The pictorial history of UTEP was published in 1989. It was published for our Diamond Jubilee. Reflecting on Adrian Poole's advocacy, Sonicson said, "The University of Texas at El Paso, 75 years after its birth, has grown from a small regional college to an important meeting place of cultures. It is, in fact, if not in name, Texas International." We are that and so much more. UTEP is a comprehensive public research university that is increasing access to excellent higher education. We advance discovery of public value and positively impact the health, culture, education, and economy of the community we serve. We are a 21st century university. That is our mission. No school will be prayed for or worked for with greater dedication. I am honored to be a part of it. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, President Wilson. If there's no further business, this convocation, a meeting of the general faculty, is now adjourned.